Hi, this is Hank reporting from Kyiv, and this is my update on Russian-Ukrainian war. Let's see what happened around Ukraine in the last 24 hours. 600,000. Map of Kursk Region. Ukraine saves Russian deserters. Chechens rob Russian store. Rostov oil refinery burns. Askania-Nova reserve is in danger. Robodog in the Wild. 600,000 soldiers. Russian army lost more than 600,000 soldiers killed and wounded. Today some happily think the number in the manner of the Beatles song Yellow Submarine because it rhymes perfectly in Ukrainian. As I already said, I never believe the news right away. I need facts to confirm what is said. For 2.5 years, I have repeatedly checked data from different sources, from official figures of our Ministry of Defense to military observers and individual soldiers who write about the events on the front. There were also indicators such as the amount of compensation paid to the families of Russian soldiers killed at the front, the amount of body bags ordered, some statistics on the issuance of disability benefits, and other data. Of course, Russia hides its losses. As you remember, they quote, "There are no losses" at the start of the invasion in 2022. This is a classic Soviet strategy. In the same way, according to them, there was no disaster in Chernobyl until it became obvious. There was no disaster in the Kursk submarine. There were no tragedies in Beslan, Nordost, Volgodonsk, and other places. This number of dead and wounded people exceeds the sum of all losses on the territory of present-day Russia in all the wars in which it was involved after the Second World War. What made the Russians take such colossal risks, break so many destinies? It's unlikely that they are ready to go and die on someone else's land because they live so well at home. I think such a number of unfortunate people came to my land and began to rob, kill, and rape instead of raising their children and making their lives better only because they had no other option to improve their lives. This is a classic strategy of dictatorial countries in which you have no opportunities if you are not from the ruling elite. The empire lives only when it continues to constantly grow and seize new territories, new resources, and enslave new people. They don't need the high technologies, as you can see. They need cheap, humble meat, and we need to expel this meat from our land. Here are 600,000 body bags for which we paid with the lives of brave people who stood up to defend their country. As many say, we give our best in the fight against their worst. It is unfair, it is terrible, and it is our reality. Russian opposition blogger Michael Naki drew a map of the Kursk region, approximately how the situation looks like today. 3 red dots are destroyed bridges that gave Russians the opportunity to transport equipment to the border area. All 3 bridges have been destroyed, and now a large group of troops can be encircled and Ukrainian soldiers can take the control of another 700 square kilometers or 270 square miles of territory, which in total will be close to 2,000 square kilometers or 770 square miles, the size of the lands that we fully control in Russia. This is 10% more than the entire state of Texas, for example, which is huge. The whole world was shocked by how brilliantly this operation to the northeast of Ukrainian border began and continues. This episode of war is already being called a turning point that will affect the entire course of events, and therefore the course of world history, because when Russia loses the war, world will no longer be the same. I'm not exaggerating, and here is why. First, we seized a gas measuring station in Suja through which all Russian gas goes to Europe, specifically to Hungary, with which Ukraine has difficult relations. I remind you that Orban has been blocking the allocation of aid to Ukraine for 2 years, and now we have a wild card that can be played in this political arena. I'm not talking about blackmail, this is not our style, but if Hungary does not allow us to receive help for unclear reasons, then perhaps this will force them to act in favor of pro-European Ukraine instead of a terrorist country that scares Europe with nuclear missiles. Second, atomic power station in Kursk. According to Denis Dovgopol, a specialist in economic sphere, we don't even need to seize the nuclear plant. It is enough to take it under fire control and be able to destroy the substations around it with precise strikes. Of course, Russia will scream that Ukraine is attacking a nuclear power plant. We will again hear this nonsense about a dirty bomb and so on, but the effect will be colossal. This station provides approximately 50% of the electricity of the territory of Russia, where 7 million people live, and they have no alternative power supply there. 5 regions of Russia receive power from this station, and in addition to production and agriculture, there are also military facilities there. According to Dennis, this operation is brilliant from the point of view of geopolitics and global strategy. We will see its effect somewhere around spring. At the moment, the operation is still ongoing. We do not yet know how it will end and what the price for it will be. This is a Ukrainian military officer who explains that they are destroying the cases of those people in Kursk region who were declared as deserters from military service in Russia. Literally, the Russian police opened cases against those who refused to go to fight in Ukraine. From our point of view, these people deserve support regardless of why they don't want to come to us with weapons. It seems to me that this will at least make some Russians think. It's a pity that not so many people think with their heads and know how to minimally analyze what is happening. And in this video from the same Kursk region, a Chechen robs a Russian store. This is such a huge contrast between the behavior of their soldiers and our soldiers on their territory. Surely you remember all these videos with stolen Ukrainian toilets which Russians dragged home on their tanks and sent by mail from Belarus somewhere to the north. Now there are jokes that Ukrainian army is advancing so quickly in Russia because they do not stop to loot. We are now living in such an interesting time. This is a video of the Rostov oil refinery. It has been burning for the 3rd day after the drone attack. According to analysts, there is about $200 million worth of jet fuel and diesel, possibly more, and this is not counting the cost of refinery itself, which Russians will not be able to quickly restore due to sanctions if they can do it at all. I want to say I don't think that I like 400-meter flame of smoking gasoline, which emits a huge amount of harmful substances into the atmosphere. I don't like thousands of tanks and combat vehicles that burn thousands of liters of diesel per hour, and of course I don't like tens of thousands of projectiles that shoot across my land and kill all the living things around. War is a horror. I do not rejoice in destruction and death, and I filmed these videos in English so that people understand we want peace. We are fighting for peace to come, so that Russians would stop destroying everything around them. Russia started this war 10 years ago. If in 2014 they had not started to capture Crimea, Donbass and Luhansk, then everyone would live peacefully, and I, for example, could go home to Mariupol and hundreds of my friends would not be looking for a place to rent and a job somewhere in Poland, Germany, Britain, but they would live in their homes with their children and some would still be alive. And the reason for all the chaos is the desire of Russians to take away someone else's land, not the desire of Ukrainians to fight endlessly. The terrorists must officially lose and pay for everything, and then it will all end. Today we received 2 contradictory statements about the Askania-Nova nature reserve. The head of the Kherson Regional Military Administration, Alexander Prokudin, reported that the supposedly oldest Ukrainian biosphere reserve and the largest steppe reserve in Europe no longer actually exists. Russians robbed it and took the animals to their territory. But then the director of this reserve, Viktor Shapoval, refuted the statement and said that Russians actually took some of the animals and some died during transportation due to improper care and lack of veterinary care, and the territory of more than 77 square miles burned due to shelling. But this does not mean that the park doesn't exist anymore. I found a great video from the travel show The World Inside Out in English, where they talk about this wonderful place. I will leave a link to the video below. I already talked about robodogs on the battlefield, and here is a video of our soldiers with such a robot in a camo. Damn, that's cool, and I have already seen a video with a flamethrower on the back of such a thing on the internet, but seeing it in the real world is much more interesting. It seems to me that after the war we will learn a lot interesting know-how that was used in combat and reconnaissance. It would be cool if people didn't fight but just put robots in the arena. We would quickly scatter the old Soviet robots with the help of new technologies and go home, as they say, in an ideal world. I think I will end the video on this positive note. Other news concerns about critical situation in the Donbass, where Putin stubbornly continues to drive his soldiers forward and does not withdraw them to protect his own territory. Such a stupid all-in strategy. It looks like a cornered rat. I wonder if anyone in the world will understand this reference now. It's hard for our soldiers, we suffer losses, civilians die. Russia still launches missiles at our cities at night every day. But as you can see, we are resisting and no one is going to surrender. I feel sorry that we got used to this way of life, but life doesn't ask us what we want. Thanks to everyone who supports us. I would like to say that under the video there are links and you can subscribe to me on Patreon and buy me a coffee service and support in any other convenient way if you want. I'll be grateful. This was my update about the Russian-Ukrainian war for day number 908. Take care and I hope to see you tomorrow.